Yes, yes, yes. Welcome to another episode of Hip Hope Hooray, Black Men Talkin Health. I am your MC for the evening. I am Oya Gilbert, so please sit back, relax, get comfortable. We got a really dope episode for you. I'm just gonna go right down the lineup. I got some really close friends of mine. And we got Chuck Duncan, who's an executive assistant in Newcastle County, Delaware. And Chuck's got type 2 diabetes. Eric Mosley's an educator. Eric serves as a behavioral coach with the Harford County Public School System, where he coordinates and facilitates. And Eric has hypertension. Antonio Garcure III is a universal banker for MMT Bank in the Wilmington area, and Tone suffers from benign myoclonic epileptic disorder. And then Randy Haskins is not last but not least, is a transportation manager, and Randy serves as the transportation manager for a prominent school district in Delaware, and Randy suffers from borderline hypertension. All right, with all that being said, man, look, let's just dive right into it. Give me your name, your age, go.
Randy Haskins, 53.
Tony Goycuria, 54.
Chuck Duncan, 52.
Eric Mosley, 52.
All right, so we got the newly formed God Squad, as we say in the text messages. And the way we're gonna do this program is really simple. We're gonna strip down the layers, get rid of all the cockamamie, and have some real conversations about specifically Black men and health literacy and our involvement in our own health care. And today's topic is gonna be really focused on the mistrust that goes on in the Black and brown communities when it comes to our doctors. You know, why we don't go to the doctors, why we don't want to get that thing checked out or go to the, I guess we would go to the emergency room if it's code red. But, you know, really why is that such an ingrained thing in our community? Mr. Tony Garcure, please tell us why, you know, you see, or what you feel creates the distrust in our community.
The distrust that's created in our community is from a historical perspective. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of things that have, throughout history, that has happened to African Americans, to Hispanic Americans, within and outside their community, from every aspect, be it health-wise or otherwise. Mm-hmm. And for lack of a better term, the people who cause those atrocities, a lot of times resemble current day caregivers. So there's a underlying distrust based off of past circumstances and situations,
right,
that currently reside today. So even though we would like to believe that the atrocities and things like that happened at that time, we're not, you know, discrediting it. Mm-hmm. But, you know, it's like, all right, that happened then. That didn't happen to me, but because there's not dialogue, because there's a lack of dialogue, you cannot silence or bring light to something to go, okay, this is not what it is. Yeah. So that's where I think a lot of that is.
I mean, we got to Tuskegee, and we definitely know how that, we know, everybody knows, or most people should know, what was going on with that circumstance. But Randy, it has to be more to it than just some particular historical things that's ingrained in us. What's your thoughts on it?
I think a lot of times for us, we're a product of like learned behaviors. So what do I mean by that? I didn't see my dad, uncles, there were no regular routine trips to go see a doctor.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, you know, that's just something that kind of gets ingrained with you. We're all, you know, Generation X men here. And I was brought up where sometimes you rub dirt on it and you get back out there, you know, go on, you know, get back out there. That was just, you know, kind of the mindset. And Unfortunately, with us, I believe a lot of times we'll wait until we won't go to a doctor until, now you being forced to go to the emergency room because you done passed out, you collapsed or something where you can no longer.
We're in critical mode.
Right. You can't put it off. But, unfortunately, we all should have, some sort of regular exam, some sort of, regular doctor, visit, doctor checkup. But again, that's not the way that, if I didn't see my dad do it, I've never had a conversation about it. So, for me, it wasn't necessarily, and I definitely get Tuskegee experiment and, there's a whole bunch of other things that we can discuss, but in terms of just getting myself checked out, just always had, a man takes what he can take and he'll do what he can do. And you lay down and you push forward. And that's a outdated sort of, mindset to have when it comes to your health.
Yeah, I mean, when you talk about that mindset that's been passed on to us, because we probably could all agree we grew up in that kind of environment. It is important that to break that cycle, and how do we do that? So for you, Eric, how did you get to the point of, where you seen the distress, or where do you see or envision where the distress comes from in our community?
So I was, as Randy was just talking, something came to my mind. I started thinking about this idea of mindset and money, and then me. Those three M's. And I think, when I think about me, it's that selfish mentality, right? That I'm not considering my children. I'm not considering those people that I might impact, who depend on me if I don't go to the doctor.
Right.
If I don't have these regular checks, if I don't check family history, right?
That's another one, yeah.
If I don't do those things, and I'm always mindful of Dr. King's quote, man. I'm always mindful of, he said, there's nothing more dangerous than sincere ignorance and conscientious stupidity, right? I think that goes a long way when we talk about disparity, when we think about trust, when we think about why we don't do certain things, why we do certain things. So when I think about the money aspect, and the mindset. The mindset is, it's not important to me.
Yeah.
It's not really important to me right now. It's just not important to me. And I kind of forget part of your question because I was kind of focused on some things that Randy was saying. I was like, well,
I definitely,
that was enriched.
I want to definitely make sure, just something you said that reminded me of a conversation that Randy had about understanding your family history. So I want to hold that thought. I want Chuck to get in and chime in because he told me to leave him alone, but I'm gonna go ahead and mess with him. But Chuck, what's your thought process on this whole thing with the distrust that we have as black men and don't do the right thing and with healthcare?
A lot of it comes from our upbringing. I know me personally, I was always told, if you don't feel good, just go lay down.
Right.
If you don't feel good, take the wet towel, put on your forehead,
right.
And it was always just based around things of that nature. My father was like, you'll be fine. The home remedies.
A lot of home remedies, yeah.
The old, family, things that used to take place. So the doctors just wasn't, me growing up, the doctors just wasn't in the cards, so to say.
Right. So, Randy, he was talking about knowing your history, and Chuck was talking about his father. That's important. His father passed on something to him, more of a behavior of just, hey, man, brush that stuff off, swallow it up. But you mentioned something really dope earlier about, tell him a story about the understanding the history.
Right. I was having these headaches, and I kind of knew, I know my body. I'm like, man, something isn't quite right, but like we said, priority-wise, like, man, I'm still able to get up. I'm able to go to work, I'm fine. I'm going, I'm thinking this is being a man. I'm going to just go ahead and push through.
Right.
And had a conversation with the wife, and she was like, you know what, I'm going to make a doctor appointment, and you're going.
Yeah.
Go to the doctor, and they find out, he's like, hey, you know what, you're borderline, high blood pressure. Then he starts asking some questions regarding, hey, so this might run in your family, how's your mom, your aunt, uncle, whatever. And I couldn't answer any of the questions. I had no idea. So once I left, I called my mom up. I'm like, hey, Mom, do we have, high blood pressure? Does that run in the family? And, she was running down, oh, yeah, I have high blood pressure. Your uncle had this and so-and-so had that. High cholesterol. I'm like, what? And it was, it was mind-blowing to me. And I'm like, wow, why did it take for me to get 50 years old?
Right.
I'm 53 now, before I even had a conversation to know what I could be genetically, disposed to. I had absolutely no idea. And we all should have some sort of conversation with our family, whether it's your mom, your dad, your aunt, uncle, whoever it is.
I agree.
To find out, hey, listen, this is what runs in our family.
Right.
And it's important, but I had absolutely no idea. That was never a conversation that was ever on, ever on my radar. And I think that's very important, that communication. Get that information to your loved ones and your family members so that you have the, the tools to at least try to combat some of this stuff, or you don't wait until it's too late.
Right.
So Randy, was that when you talked to your mom and she said, yeah, I got a history, and she ran all that stuff down to you, was that like an aha for you to change some things, trajectory for your family?
So I'm glad you asked that. So when the doctor was like, okay, right now you're borderline, so we're going to prescribe you. I was like, hold on, let me do this, before, give me an opportunity. Yeah, let me try this, let me, reduce that. Because listen, I have a relatively clean diet, but again, if you're genetically disposed, so I don't care how well you eat, how much you exercise. It's just one of those, one of those things. But I'm like, listen, let me do this first before, if you allow me, is that okay? Let me try this first. But yes, it definitely was an aha moment where now I'm talking to, my children. I was talking to my son, who's he's 28. Right now everything was good, but I'm like, look, this is a chance as you get older, so I just want you to be aware again. Right. Starting the dialogue to this, potentially runs into the family.
I mean, it's the only way that we can change the trajectory of it, because you got to start having a conversation about it first. And if we want the change to happen, we got to start educating our children, start educating at a younger age in our community. And the importance of what you said about knowing your family's history and those type of things is, if it's something that's predisposed, it can help you maybe get into a situation for early detection. And as we well know, the sooner you find out anything is the better.
Absolutely.
And so that's why it's important, a great point that you made, Randy, about that. And Tone, you was, I think you were saying earlier about the financial aspect of the trust thing. You had a unique spin on it. I don't know if I, jiggled the little memory switch on you, but could you break down like what you were talking about, like how the financial aspect of it creates some barriers as well?
So you look at your, whatever this situation is, whatever your health concern is, and you're like, I can't afford to go to the hospital. So when we had discussions earlier, some of it is, yes, actually, you can't afford to go to the hospital. But I think it's according to whatever your situation is, there's levels. So level of that, we look at it and go, okay, I can't go to the hospital, but then yet we can look at buying a materialistic item, and it's about placing a value. So if you're not, you have to put it, what is your health to you?
Right, how you prioritize?
How do you prioritize your health? And it's like, if you're looking at a car, a pair of sneakers, or whatever, and that's cool. Nobody's saying not to. But your health, you can't enjoy those things if you're not healthy.
Come on, man.
So and that's a big thing. That's that's a whole nother topic in regards to economics because we haven't, in our community, those things weren't prioritized. So, and the economic aspect and the health aspect, they go hand in hand. So we don't value it because we weren't, it kind of wasn't ingrained in us that this is something to be valued.
Yeah, so when you mention finance, it definitely is a huge factor in disparities overall, no matter what ethnicity you're talking about. So that's definitely important. But when you talk about finance, I think about an example of there once was a time where I didn't have insurance, but I was a cigarette smoker at that time. I think it was really my first, I call them episode of what my cancer is now. I had like my first episode and I immediately shot to like, what are the things that I'm abusing? Like for that situation, I'm like, oh, sugar, this, that, and the third, but it was definitely, cigarettes. But when I got that bill, it was once I went there without the insurance and got that first bill, I was like, oh, this is ridiculous. I almost had a heart attack at that point.
Right.
So I recognized like I got to do something. And the motivation for quitting smoking is when I did the math on how much I was spending on the packs of cigarettes a week, times, a day, a week times, for the month. It was more than enough to cover the insurance. And so I say that to be to the point of it is important for us to be intentional as Black men about our healthcare. It goes into the same thing. So the finance thing is not necessarily a distrust thing, but the fact that we feel it's cool to be focused on getting a pair of Jordans than making sure we go get a prostate check.
Yep.
There's a real problem. I mean,
hey, I think you hit that ball out the park with that. Going back to what Tone was saying in that is the values, right? And I guess the question is, how do we change this thought process, this mindset, right? What do we begin to do when we think about Black and brown, right? And I, as an educator, I kind of always go back to education, man.
Right.
I think about, some years ago, they were trying to, the institution of education was trying to combat these disparities when it came to discipline, right?
Okay.
It's still discipline disparities now, but you would see Black and brown boys particularly that will be sent to the office, more office referrals nationwide. These numbers are astounding. So somebody came up with the idea is to allow these boys to see themselves, right? So there was an initiative. A lot of colleges and institutions were recruiting Black students to be teachers. And the idea was that, okay, if we could have some Black male teachers,
this will fix the problem.
this will help fix the problem of the disparity of the trust that these boys have with these predominantly classrooms that are white females as teachers, right? So that was the idea. And I gotta say, I think if any of us may have had a Black male teacher, some of y'all shaking your head the impact.
Absolutely.
You automatically felt connected, right? You automatically felt like, okay, yes, you could relate right off the bat, and therefore it would, that trust was there, the disparity would start to, hinder and dwindle somewhat. But that's a start.
Right.
That's a start, right? To see yourselves represented, to see having a black doctor. Right. I ask my friends sometimes, some of my white teacher colleagues, I say, when the last time you went to the store and your butcher, that person that's cutting your meat, they're white? They say, all the time. I said, when the last time you been to your dentist? And your dentist happens to be white. Right. They say all the time. So I kept that same, that train of thought. And I said, you know what? If you was to ask any of your Black or brown boys in your class, these questions I'm asking you,
it's gonna be a whole different answer.
Never.
Yeah.
Never. So you see right there that disparity, that lack of trust, they're not seeing themselves represented enough. And that's how I think about when we talk about in the medical field, right?
Right.
I don't see my doctor. You know, I don't have those doctors like that. Although my cardiologist, he was a man of man with melanin in him, right? As a matter of fact, my Randy, you talked about high blood pressure. So I know high blood pressure runs in my family. My grandmothers, my grandfathers, my dad, my uncles, everybody, lottie-dottie, right? Had high blood pressure in my family, right? So I'm on medication now. I was on medication before, and my cardiologist, when I met my cardiologist, he said, "Oh, you're on so-and-so." I said, "Yes." He said, "No, that's not for us." He said, "Those of us with melanin, we don't take that for our blood pressure. We take amlodipine. That's what's going to help us." He said, "The other medicines prescribed to other folk." He said, "But this is not what you want." So again, I trust this man. He broke it down to me, was knowledgeable, and it makes me think like, whoa, no one really considered, you know, my demographic, my background as an African-American man when you prescribe this first medication to me?
You know, you make a great point with bringing up all the topics that you said. One of the things is about having that personal relationship with your doctor. I've been in circumstances currently where I have went through 4 specialists. Now, I've had my disease for 6 years, but I went through 4 specialists in 6 years. That ain't cool. You know what I mean? Like, when you think about the importance or the significance of their role.
Come on, man.
Right.
You know, that shouldn't be happening. So how are you ever able to build a relationship of trust? Because that's what was happening in old school. And I think, Chuck, you mentioned something about that, the blessings of having maybe one doctor, whether it's your dentist, it's just like a barber. You know, how many times, think about that.
Ooh,
think about
that's a great
how many
point.
times you go to a whole bunch of different damn barbershops.
Come on, man.
That's a great point.
You know, every time you want to get a haircut, you know, just because you need a haircut. Even if you go in the same barbershop, you're not going to go to different barbers, even in the same barbershop. So it's the same thing, you walk in the medical thing, like it's important that you build that rapport,
Man.
especially of that magnitude. Chuck, tell us about like what that means to you, because I think you said you had your own doctor for quite some time.
Yes, I did. It's a trust, knowing that he has my best interests. He's just not going to just get me for my co-payment. You know, it's just, you know, he just want to make sure. But and this is funny and true story, the only time that I didn't agree with him, because at our ages we should have been getting our prostate checked. But because of pride, you know, I was like, man, I'm not getting that done. So finally, I was experiencing some things. So he said, listen, man, you've really got to get this done. And we, you know, so we booked the appointment. And I said, because I didn't know.
Right.
So being ignorant to the fact that what went on with this exam, you know, so then when he explained to me, and I said, wait a minute, put your hand up. So he put his hand up next to mine, and I said, no, that ain't gonna work. So as funny as it sounds, but this is the only time I used another doctor, and I will never forget her, a little Italian lady. Her name was Dr. Ghetto. I said, let me see. Yeah, I said, let me see your hands. And she had very small hands, very small fingers. I said, okay, now we can proceed. And my doctor laughed at me so hard, but what made me comfortable was he went and got his colleague.
Right.
You know, because he wanted to ensure that I get this test done.
Man, that's a dope story too, as a matter of fact.
Yeah.
But even though in the, you say the lack of you having that education about it, you still subconsciously advocated for yourself. Yeah. Because what you did was you're like, okay, first you started off with, man, I'm good. Then you got some little symptoms, and then you talk to the same doctor because he has a relationship with, like, he could have that kind of conversation with you, like, yo, dog. You know, he can really talk to you, like, hey, man, I know how you feeling, that understanding, and that's what you were saying. Having somebody that looks like you automatically eliminates all those nuances that come with us. You know what I'm talking about. The nuances that come with us. As soon as you see somebody now, if you happen to be in the office and this is, we got different tiers of homies and people, but when you go into any type of office, but especially your doctor's office, they look like you. Man. Immediately, that immediately sends a sense of trust. Which is strange, but it's no different than anything else. Then when they start talking, you're looking for, are they relatable?
Right.
You know, can I understand
Good
what they're
word.
saying? And then the point after that is how educated they are. Are they knowledgeable? Do you understand it? But all that goes back to what we're talking about with the distrust thing and how you change that is, it's about being educated. Like, if you don't know what you're talking about, you can't question anything. You don't know what you don't know the questions to ask or whatever that might be. I mean, I like to really go around the room and say, ask y'all the question of this. So we know pride can be an issue with distrust. Right?
No.
You know, we got a lot of pride. You know, it could be previous trauma, whatever that might be. Bad situation. I know I got an issue with mayonnaise. It's a whole nother different story. But it got me sick one time, and I don't even want to mess with it. I don't care who got it. But I guess the point is, the question is the trust portion of it. Randy, I'm gonna start over here. We can just go right around the room. When it comes to the trust portion of it, what do you think is the biggest thing in the Black community? I know there's a ton of different things, but what do you think is the biggest thing?
Well, I think, just really a lack of being, informed on some things. So, again, I'm 53 now. I didn't find out that high blood pressure runs in my family until I was 50. Now, why was that? Because there was never a conversation within, my household ever with my mom, dad, or whoever, that this is something that you need to be, you need to be mindful of. So,
Right.
I mean, you be mindful of some of the things that you eat. But I, never really paid that any mind, so I didn't know it. So I think, lack of, information, lack of, having a, I won't say necessarily the difficult conversation with, your relatives or
Right.
your mom, your dad, or whatever, but there should be some sort of conversation amongst your family that, hey, here's our family medical history.
Right.
Here's some things that you might have to watch out for. Here's some things, tell your doctor X, Y, and Z so they can check you for this. If you don't know that, then like I said, if you don't know that, you'll never ask.
Can't make no
So
sense.
lack of information, on some things, I think.
Man, that list is a lot of stuff has when you talk about that, right? You said start that in your family.
Yeah.
That's going to list a whole lot of other conversations that's going to deal with other issues.
Yeah, I think it's important that we have those conversations. As uncomfortable as they sound, and I know it's this cliche that goes around, it's uncomfortable, but what I think we need to do is we need to stop talking about the uncomfortable and just talk. Like we're doing right now. Tone, how you feeling?
To expand on what Randy's saying in regards to like information, or lack of, it's digesting that information. And then because somebody can give you the information, but if you can't process it, you don't even know what you're getting.
Good word.
I used to be a technician, an auto technician. And when I would go to the cousin, yeah, I'm good. Am I? I used to be an auto technician.
Funny though.
I used to be an auto technician, and when I would go talk to the customers about their vehicle, I'm like, oh, Mr. Johnson, so your throwout bearing for your clutch has deteriorated to a point where the flywheel won't engage in that time. So when you're talking that, so immediately the customer that you're talking to, when you're talking to them technical, you're going over their head. That is an immediate distrust. You're like, yo, you trying to scam me. You know what I mean?
That's a great point.
So you have to give them the information. You have to break it down to a point where they can get it. So when it comes to this medical aspect, a lot of times it's not a fear. It may be a lack of understanding because a doctor is giving you the information, but because they're not giving it to you they're talking to you technical.
Come on now.
So it's like you're Charlie Brown. I'm not getting it.
Right.
So you have to get to the point where they can give it to you in the bites that you can break it down and go, okay, this is what you say. Then you can have that conversation of, all right, now I know what I got. What can I do with it? And then there has to be that continued dialogue where they're giving it to you in a place where you can digest it.
I feel you on that. What's up, Chuck?
Yeah, I just want to say with that is, now that we know, what's the saying? You know better, you do better. You do better, you know better. So now that we know, we need to look after our family. You know, like I can't make the mistakes that my father, who I believe, and let me say this on record, who I believe was the greatest man ever walked the face of this earth. And I honestly, wholeheartedly believe that. But the mistakes that he made towards showing us and directing us in healthcare choices, or you know, it's not the mistakes I want to make with, you know, my children, or a lot of us in the black community, you know, there's a lot of single mothers in our families. Right. So that means we need to pick up our nephews, you know, because they are the black men growing up, you know, and just need to just make sure that we share, you know, with them as well, you know.
We need to share. I mean, those are strong points. You had a couple one-liners in there too. The sharing part is important, and I'm gonna go right to you, E. The sharing part is imperative, because we can't make change if we just, like I said earlier, keep talking about it. Right. You know, it's important for us that it's 2024 now. We can have a seat at these tables. We can. But we can't be on the sidelines complaining all the time, watching the game and telling them how to, you know, play the game. I mean, we all probably, I don't know about it, but I'm a huge sports fanatic. I sit there on the TV. You should have ran it backwards. But yeah, it sounds great when we're looking at it on the computer or on the television. But in that moment, so what you got to start doing is you know, you build yourself up, educate yourself, then get in the game. And we need to learn how to. I personally believe, as black people, we need to learn how to, instead of bucking all the time on the system, and we need to learn the system, learn to get educated so we can make sounder decisions and just play the game better. You know, just understand it better. That's how we get where we're going. Somebody figured out how to fly a plane, and then somebody else figured out how to make a plane better. So I think it's important for us to continue to pass on this knowledge, like we have right here, this conversation, to the point where they become very comfortable, very normal dialogue, so that when we at the block parties, the barbecues and all that stuff, it ain't weird while we sipping on, you know, it's like, yo, man, you know what I'm saying?
Yes, sir, I do, man. All you're getting, first get understanding, right? And all you're getting, first get understanding. And essentially, as you said, you know, infiltrate to impact. Infiltrate to impact, man. And that's what we have to do, and be about it, as Dunk was saying, Chuck was saying, man, and being practical. I think practicality, starting with what Randy was saying, man, the information, Tone was saying, digesting the information, man, and having, and knowing the things that we were taught or were not taught, and then taking those things and make an application, right? So I think about, I was eating my wings, man. Eating my wings, and I got a text message, and family shows up. So started a family for all my kids, man. So we have a weekly call, a weekly Zoom call.
Okay. And
you know, there are no excuses. No excuses. Everyone has to be there, regardless of whatever it is. And, you know, because I have my son, my daughter, they're in Florida. So we have a call and we talk about things, man. We talk about, you know, and my daughter's a nurse. So she's always questioning me. Right. Dad, are you? Dad, what you going to the doctors for? Dad, make sure they tell you this. Right. Well, why, Rosa? Why? Because, boom, and now she's teaching me.
Exactly.
Right? Sharing that information, right? Sharing that information. But practical thing is first having that call. That's something that we can dialogue about. That's something that I said, no, this is something, it's gospel. We all have to be here, and we're gonna share, and we're gonna transfer information so that our lives can be transformed. We can't be transformed if we don't transfer information. I preach that right there. Preach, won't it? That preach right there, right now. So, yeah, so when I think about, you know, what can we do, man, in terms of practical stuff for trust, right? You know, these kind of conversations. You know, think about Randy. Randy said, Mose, listen, man, I really want to encourage you to get back on your bike, because, you know, I love riding my bike, and my bike, I was more fit. He said, man, I'm going to get back. I'm going to encourage you, because this is what I want you to do. Right. You know? He made that commitment. That's accountability. Now, I'm expecting Randy to check up on me. Right. Mose, you ride? How many miles you ride this week? I'm expecting that. I think building accountability, right? Saying to Tone, say, look, Tone, man, I only want to eat one butterscotch crimp it. One butterscotch, crimp it a month, right? So right now, right. So yeah, right. So here's one thing. This is real right here.
Right.
I've given up sweets except for in a drink. Okay. Except for in a drink, not juices. I'm not drinking juices either. So I've given up sweets. That I had some green tea up there. That's my first sweet I had since February.
Oh, wow.
So I was going through April. Going through April. So I got to tell my wife that I had something because she's my accountability partner when it comes to these sweets. So I think when we have these practical things like, listen, I'm trying to lose this amount of weight. So hold me accountable. You know, when we see that 2 for $5 sale, you know, at Chick-fil-A, nah. Keep it moving. You see the big billboard Burger King? Whoppers only $3. Keep on moving. We like about saving money, but
I think I don't know if it was Chuck earlier had said something about, you know, sometimes we purchase things just because it's, what'd you say, 3 for 1 or 4 for 1. You know how we do. We try to get that hookup.
Come on, man.
And managing that money. But you said, once again, you said some more nuggets in there that, man, we might have to have a couple of these segments here. You know, a person holding you accountable. First of all, I love the idea of the no excuse call so we can talk, because that's where those conversations can be had. Don't mean the whole call got to be about that, but that's where those kind of conversations kind of fall out and just spew out into the atmosphere. The other thing, the accountability thing, you know, Randy mentioning to you, I think that is the other key to making the change. It's like we as black men, and I'm just gonna say this as best I can say it, like we gotta love on each other a little bit more, man. Like we gotta really lose that old crazy thought process that was taught to us. Like there's a difference between loving on a brother and it being weird. You know what I'm saying? Like, you're crazy. But I mean, in all seriousness, we have to, we are our brother's keeper.
Indeed.
You know, we really are. Indeed. And if we go spiritual, our brother is Jesus, you know, and he keeps us. And so I think it's very, very important that we be honest with each other, not necessarily worry about feelings, because you know what's gonna make me feel crazy? If something happened to you,
come on,
and I had the information, and I didn't share it, now you jacked up, and I'd be like, I shoulda, or I'm telling you, you sitting there hurting. You're like, really? You know. So I want to change the gears. Same topic, same situation. We've discussed pride. We've discussed all the different things that are drivers to why we don't trust the healthcare field. One of the things as I lead off of this is sitting at the table and make sure we're sitting at the table. We really do need to do that, because it's important. How are we going to get the data that they need? Y'all talked about things being precision catered to us, medications. I think, Eric, you was talking about that. Your doctor told you medication. Precision medicine, where you need information to create precision medicine. You know, it's like less than 2%. There's like 2% or less people that participate in like clinical trials from a black person. We can't ask them to make, you understand what I'm saying? Like some of it is, we got to do something. We can't ask them to make better drugs for us if they ain't got no data. If the only data they got is white data, they're going to make the drug, and if we get the same disease the white person get, they still, what else can we take? Unless we're going to go eat some berries or something like that. So I think it's important for that to be said. And Randy, I'm gonna go around the room, and it doesn't matter. Y'all can just chime in. What is a solution to it? Because when we talk about the problem, now we gotta come up with a solution. Like, what can we do? That's what I ask each one of you. What can we do to change the distrust?
I think take your, as men, I think we need to take our health just more seriously. Make it a priority. It's what good am I if I'm not healthy enough to be able to, to help provide for my family? I mean, that's, as men, we always want to be able to provide for our families, but you're not going to be able to do that if you're not really healthy enough to do it. Mm-hmm. And I just think we need to make it more of a priority, our health. Like, I have never really sat down and had a conversation like this regarding health.
Really?
Never. It's never really been a topic where I sit around with my brothers right now.
No, I haven't.
And exchange, like, I'm dead.
You can sit and talk about anything else, music, sports,
football, music,
but
yeah,
never
sports,
a medical.
movies.
Top 10 dead or alive, that kind of stuff. What?
So this is why something like this is so important.
It's essential.
Because we've all just essentially shared, you know, a piece of, something that we've
It's
went
intimate.
through.
This is intimate information
Yes, sir.
for real.
And I think that it starts there and having this sort of dialogue so that it's not some sort of taboo
Right.
sort of situation where, nah, I ain't talking about my health. That's what is that?
Testicular.
Let's get back to,
Hold on.
get back to talking about football or something.
Right.
This is
Why you coughing in the
right.
background?
This is real essential talk right here that I think we all do a better job of, discussing our health and making sure that we make it a priority.
I love it. Essential talk. We're gonna have to.
Yeah.
It's a lot of nuggets up in here. Go ahead, Tom.
The thing about the thing I think is, I agree with Randy, 100%, that this is extremely unique. I've never had a conversation like this. Never. The only time I had a conversation with this, it was just with one other person, and that's if I was talking to a doctor. But I've never, that didn't look like me.
Right,
so
right.
to sit down with people that look like me, that I grew up with, and we had highs and lows and in-betweens together, and have a conversation about health is mind-blowing. Shouldn't be.
Shouldn't be.
Sad to say that it is, but see, the thing about that is that's where it stops. Now this conversation is no longer mind-blowing because we're having it.
Right.
What we do with that now is that when we this is like a huddle. So when you break as men, then we take that to our homes, and now we become leaders. And then you break down you want to solve it. You say, how do we fix it? You get a collective like you have right now, put them together, give them information, let them disperse, take that back to their communities, to their homes, their families, and give that information to their families.
Replicate. Come on, man.
Replicate, exactly.
Discipleship,
You sitting here
man.
talking about pharmacy, drugs, and what have you. What do? They take that stuff in the lab, put it together, and watch the bacteria spread. There's a good bacteria right here.
Right.
We're gonna spread it.
Right.
Yep.
I love it. I love it.
He just-
He
just took, he just took my thought. So I agree with what Tone said, because I was just sitting here thinking, we got 5 brothers who I love all. I love you, Eric. I love you, O.
Appreciate
Love
that.
you, Hash. Love
Thank
you,
you, Tom.
Tone.
Love you back,
Chuck.
brother.
Love you, Chuck.
So, and we sit here and we have this conversation, and you're right, and it's not about football or basketball. It's not about, hip hop. I mean, it is reference to hip hop, but still. And the thought that Tone stole from me, well, he didn't know he stole it, but you got people listening to this.
Y'all time share.
You got people listening to this. It's like,
Yes.
yo, man, it was 5 brothers in their 50s. Talking about this, and that's gonna go on to their group. And yo, man, I heard these brothers kicking it like this, and it spreads. Yeah.
I love it. What you got for us, A?
It's got the word ditto. Man, yeah, man. It's the foundation is this, man. A good thing you can't keep to yourself, right?
Right.
A good thing you can't keep to
It's
yourself.
difficult.
You can't. And as you was talking, Tone, I was going to interrupt you and say, and this conversation feels so good. It feels good. It's not forced. It feels good. Cathartic in a sense.
Yeah.
It's cathartic
It
in a
is
sense,
cathartic.
man.
You're right.
It's, I'm sorry. It's something it helps you. You know what I mean? It's therapeutic. You know what I
break it
mean?
down for
Yeah,
everybody.
that's what I'm about to do. You know what I mean? It helps us. Yeah, you can digest
Yeah, we
that
just
thing
talked
a
about
little bit.
digesting.
Yeah, put down
Got
the line of
people
your
going
mind.
to Google.
Blow a minute. Yeah, cathartic. I learned that in 11th
that was
grade
Metamucil.
creative writing class. But I think what we can do is I think we have to transfer the message again, man. I think, and the particular message I think we need to transfer is that we don't ever have to wait for an apology to be better.
Ooh, yep.
So when you think about, trying to collect data, from our demographic, right? And somebody say, you know, because I think the way you laid out that background, man, in terms of how can medications be made for us if they don't have data on us, and what people are going to combat with is, well, look what they did in the 30s through the 50s with Tuskegee, and no, listen, they still ain't even apologized, they ain't even admitting it. Listen, we don't need an apology for us to be better.
Right.
That's the conversation, I think. That's one of the things. But yeah, I just think the conversation, man, just transferring the importance of transferring the message of health. And it's not about just you.
That's right.
It's not about just you.
So I'm not even gonna be able to follow all that up because it was like mic drop after mic drop after mic drop. But it is all of those collective things, I think, for us as black men. It's imperative that we start taking our health serious. That's for starters. Start educating ourselves on the overall thing. And what I mean by overall thing is, if we want to go somewhere forward, if we want to move forward, we got to figure out what it is that we need to do. And one of those things is we need to participate. You know, we complain. It's no different than presidential election. We can sit in the back and I hate all these candidates. Did you go vote? Nah.
No, I didn't.
You gotta participate. And so, do I know those things exist with farm and all that? Man, come on, we not slow. We get it. But I guess what I feel is important for us is to be as educated as possible so we can make better decisions, make sound decisions. You can't go and complain to pharma if we don't really understand the process of how they create that scenario. So if we're there when they're making the drug or thinking it up as a patient or as the end user, if we there from conception to commercialization, I think it creates a bigger impact. And we can't do that if we sitting on the sidelines just talking about what they ain't doing. Randy said it before. I love it. It's a very antiquated narrative, man. It is so. It gets so tiring to keep, always pointing the finger somewhere else. When, like I said, a lot of it is self-inflicted, and we can do better for ourselves just by making simple dietary changes. Eat better. You said it before. Cutting back on things, and I want to conclude with what E said is, we also, as people, take on so much. Like, don't overwhelm yourself. That's why I love when you say, hey, balance. It ain't say go cold turkey on something, unless something's happened to you. Your doctor say you gotta go cold turkey. You should be able to understand them circumstances because your condition gonna say you need to go to cold turkey. But it is about taking that first step. Don't let it overwhelm you. Cut your sugar back in half, a quarter. Cutting back is getting better.
It's victory.
And it's victory. And you just keep taking that step on all of that. As Chuck said, hey, I didn't want to hear about the prostate check. But then a little bit more steps later, a couple little and next you know, doctor give you that little nod like, hey, buddy, I think you should get that done. Now you're talking, well, let me see your hand. You're coming up with another reason not to. I don't want to talk that. He said, nah, I'm going to go find a person with the little hand.
Right.
Now, you could have been like, I don't want a man, or I only want, it's all kinds of, we just need to just go get past it. So, as we conclude the program, which is definitely off the chain, I'm trying to use all the hip-hop slang I know between coming from the beginning of the 80s. yeah. We got to put a couple and skirts in it. But we like to end. We like to end Hip Hope Hooray.
Young folk, we like
I
that.
asked this question to all my guests, and I'm going to go around the room. The question is, when you want to get amped up, geeked up, and psych yourself up, get something done, give me one hip-hop song, one artist. Go, Randy Haskins.
Take It Personal, Gangstar.
All right. Tony G.
Come Clean, J. Rue the Damager.
Okay, I like that one. Mr. Chuck D.
DMX. Where the hood at?
Oh, that's classic.
You see why his answers had that in it.
Yeah.
Eric Mose. His song.
M.O.P.
M.O.P.
Ante up.
Yeah.
Oh. Woo! Get that boy. Yeah. I would probably say for me, it's different. It's Biggie. It's What's Beef. It has so much. It resonated with me so well. But we don't have no beef today. It's been all love on the show. I want to thank you guys for joining me. I hope to have you guys back so we can talk again.
No doubt.
And peace out and keep 5-0 guessing.